Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's do the prayers first. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhurbhuvaswaha, Tatsavitravare Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto ma sadgamya, tamso ma jyotirgamya, mrityorma amritam gamya. Om sahna vavtu, sahna bhunaktu, sahviryam karvavahe, tejasvi navadhitamastu, ma vidvishavahe. Om shanti shanti shanti. Let's open our Yog Darshan books. And we are towards the end of it, the fourth path, which is called KAIVALYA path. And we ended our last class with verse number 12, where Rishi Patanjali is saying that past and future exist. Atit anagatam savruptah asti णवबय dharmanam. So past and future exist in their own form by difference of paths. Okay, so this is what we talked about last time. So let's start with verse number 13. Te vyaktasookshma gunatmanah. Te means they. Over here, this they means the inherent properties of the world of time, past and present. That's what we are talking about. So vyakt means manifest, suksham is subtle, gunatmanah of the nature of guns, whether manifest or unmanifest. They are of the nature of gunas. Okay, so the inherent properties of the world of time, which is called dharma, because in the last verse we saw that dharma word. So these dharmas are sometimes manifest in the form of the present. Sometimes they are unmanifest in the form of the past and future. So present we can perceive. That's what manifest means, present. Somebody is standing in front of us. We can see with our eyes, talk to them. But past and the future, they are unmanifest. So they are not merely events, but they are the different combinations of dharmas and the objects that you perceive and are pervaded by three guns. So these three guns, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, they pervade it all. Past also, present also, future also. So these gunas are the fundamental principles in the individual and also in the external world too. And these guns, they are combined in various proportions to give rise to the objects in the world. Something we bring home, some fruits or vegetables, for example, apple, is not ripe yet. In a few days it will ripe. If you just leave it there, it will become overripe. And then it will start to decay also. The same object goes through different guns. So the manifest qualities and the unmanifest states of the world are both derived from the three guns. So it should be understood that time is as important a part of the world as is the object. So Kal. Usually the world is considered to be just the creation of material, mental, and spiritual objects. But we got to always remember the factor of time is also involved. Kal. So this sutra makes the point very clearly that the dharmas are not just imagination. They have a definite existence because they are made up of the three guns. So when the three guns are eliminated, either in the individual or in the cosmos, one can understand and transcend the time process of the world. So this is what Rishi Patanjali is trying to get to with these deep philosophical sutras. So verse number 14. Parinam ekatvat vastu tattvam. Parinam is a transformation. We have talked about this term before also. Parinam. Ekatvat, due to oneness. Vastu, object. Tattvam, the essence. So essence of the object he's talking about in this one. So the essence of the object is due to the uniqueness of transformation of the guns. So guns keep on transforming. They undergo the process of transformation, as we say, and this transformation has peculiarity and uniqueness. The mental perception in daily life is due to the uniqueness of transformation of the three guns. The same person sitting in a very quiet, peaceful place, we can see the peacefulness and the serenity on the face. But the same person, if something wrong happens, we can see the agitation on the face too. So the three guns, which are part of Prakriti, just remember that these three guns are not, it's not the Atma which is changing, it is the Prakriti which is changing. So that's why we got to remember that these gunas are part of Prakriti and they undergo transformation from avyakta to vyakta, unmanifested to manifested. And the three guns not only produce and control the matter, but make it different from another. So that's why when the transformation happens with the milk, it can either rot or it can create or get created into yogurt. So transformation. So the guns produce the organic, inorganic, physical, mental, and psychic, as well as the astral field of the universe. Because the astral field is also Prakriti. Subtle field is the Prakriti. The grosser field is the Prakriti. So these changes can happen wherever the Prakriti is. It is very difficult to have a metaphysical concept or knowledge of the three guns. It is a very fine process. Because from the within its structure, time and space are produced. Naturally, the uniqueness of the transformation of the guns is accepted by Rishi Patanjali. And due to the uniqueness of the transformation, various combinations of the gunas arise and result in various objects, gross as well as subtle. And it's an absolutely unique transformation. So in order to really understand this transformation, we have to get deeper into it, look at the subtler aspect of it. So the reality of the object in the three guns because of the uniqueness of the transformation. So this is what he's talking about. So now in the next verse, vastusamye chittabhedat tayorvibhaktah panthah. So this is a theory of perception. Vastusamye, by sameness of the object. chittabhedat, by the difference of the chit, the mind, or the deeper layers of mind. Tayo, of these two. Vibhaktah, separate. Panthah, path of manifestation. So because of the sameness of object and the difference of the chit, their paths are separate. So this sutra explains the yogic theory of perception. Even though the object is one, the perception becomes different according to the difference of the chitta. So that subtle part of our mind takes over. So the same object is perceived differently at different times because of the difference in the mental condition or the instrument of cognition. So that's why in this great scripture, it started out understanding what a chitta is. The whole path of yoga is nothing but a path of chitta, the mind. The object may be one, but it looks different due to a difference in the degree and also in time concerning the cognizing faculty. So that's why we are told that keep your mind clean, keep your mind stable, so that you can understand it clearly. So this particular difference in the order of chitta is responsible for the difference of cognition. Okay, so this journey is the journey with the help of this instrument which is called chitta. You remember that second verse of this great scripture, yoga chittavriti nirodha. So this is yoga, chittavriti. And then he told us right after that if you can have that kind of a chitta, which is completely clean and completely under your control, you will know who you are. Tada savrupe avasthanam. You will know who you are. And now, towards the end of this great scripture, he is coming to the same point. Verse number 16. Na cha ekaha chit tantram vastu tad apramanakam tada kim sayat. Na means not, cha means and. Ekaha, one. Chit, again that mind, deeper mind. Tantram, dependent. Vastu, object. Tad means that. Apramanakam, non-cognized. Tada means then. Kim means what? Sayat, would happen. The object of perception is not dependent on the chitta. What would happen to the object of perception when the medium of cognition is not there? So the perception of an object takes place through the medium of the senses, but it is not dependent on one mind or one form of knowledge of chitta. If it were so, then the cognition would not continue in the absence of the medium of cognition. There are two theories about this. One is called the idealistic theory, which denies the very existence of the world, that it doesn't exist. Then there is a realistic theory that the world exists in its objective form as we see it. So the Vedantic philosophy is idealistic. while the Charvak school of philosophy is realistic. So Charvak materialistic theory says, yeah, whatever I see, that's what it is. And Vedantic is idealistic, and yoga seems to be the middle path. It does not dispose of the highest side of the world of perception, and it also does not dispose of the objective. It believes in existence of the objects as well as the degree or the higher side of the existence. So when even Chit is withdrawn, the Rishi Patanjali says the world will continue to exist because the world as a whole is existing in matter, in mind, in the indriyas, and in time and space. Sure, it keeps on changing, but it does exist. So the object is not dependent on one mind. It means that the phenomenal world is subjective to each mind. It does not disappear when one person obtains Kaivalya. Sure, for that person, he is totally detached from it. But this world continues for other people who have not attained Kaivalya. Kaivalya means moksha. That's another term for moksha or the mukti or the liberation. If you think that the object of perception is dependent on one mind, which has been eliminated, then it may be asked what happens to the object of perception when it's not cognized by the mind. Because the answer to that is that the object continues to exist for other persons. So object is there, it is real, but for that person, it doesn't exist anymore, no interest. Verse number 17. Tad uprag apekshitvat chittasya vastu gyat agyatam. Tad uprag, the reflection of the object in chitta. Apekshitvat, because of necessity. Chittasya, of the chitta, of the mind. Vastu, object. Gyat, known. Agyatam, unknown. The mind needs the reflection of the object for its cognition. So the reflection of the object has to be on the mind. And we have seen earlier that if the mind is clear and the clean, the reflection of the object will be correct. Otherwise, it can be incorrect. And that's what he talked about when he gave us, he talked about the vritis in the very first chapter. Klishta vritti, aklishta vritti. The same object can give us happiness or sorrow. So reflection of the object. So mind needs the reflection of the object for its cognition. So the mind needs the object, like a reflection of the object. Only then can knowledge of that object takes place. So long as the object of conception is not reflected in the chit does not have knowledge or cognition of that particular object. So very clearly he is telling us again and again that if an object is placed before the chit, but no reflection takes place, there will be no knowledge. And if there's no knowledge, there's no cognition. Even though the object and the chit are face to face, but if the reflection is not there, Moreover, the knowledge of an object does not take place just because the object is there. Knowledge arises only when there's a reflection of the object in the chitta. Okay, so this is the point he's making. So this sutra means that an object is either known or unknown, according to the presence or absence of the reflection of the object in the mind. In the next verse, he is telling us that the Purusha knows the mind. And what is the Purush? Purush is the Atma. Because we talk about so much about the mind and the chitta. So is it known by us or not? He says, Sada gyataha chit vrityaha tat prabho purushasya aparinam tuat. Sada means always. Gyataha are known. Chit vrityaha, modifications of mind. Tat prabho, on its master. Purushasya, of the Purusha. Aparinam tuat, due to changelessness. See, parinam is a change, transformation. Aparinam, changelessness. See, mind keeps on changing, but what does not change is the Purusha, the Atma. Purush, the master of the Chitta, is a changeless. Therefore, he always knows the modifications of the mind. Because mind keeps on changing, body keeps on changing. This objective world keeps on changing. But who knows these changes? Something which does not change. That is the Purush. So the Purush never changes. It is constant, although everything else changes. The world of time and space, qualities, cognitions, they all undergo constant change. But this change has a permanent, changeless background, a permanent basis, which is the soul. So whether we call it a soul or self or Atma or Purusha, it's the same thing. So over here in this scripture, he used the word Purusha. Okay. Each of this Puri, that's what Purush means. Okay, Puri means this city. This body is called a Puri, the city. Who is the Ish of that? The God of that is the Atma. So this is what this Purush means. Because sometimes when we look at the Hindi language, Purush means a man. Istri means a woman. But this is a Sanskrit word, Purusha. Okay? So Ish of this Puri is changeless. That's why it's also called the substratum, basis, essence, tattva. So whatever takes place in the chit is automatically known to the soul because he is the master of the chit. Okay? Sada gyataha chit vrityaha tat prabho is the master. We just not pay or have paid much attention to the master, only to the objective world. So Rishi Patanjali is bringing our mind towards this essence. And now he says in the next verse, verse number 19, that the chit is not self-illuminative. See, Atma, Paramatma, they are self-illuminative. Chit is not. Na tat swabhasam drishyetvat. Na means not, tat means that. Swabhasam, self-illumined. Drishyetvat, of perceptibility. That chit is not self-illumined because it is the subject of knowledge and perception. We all know that the sun shines of its own accord, but the moon is not self-illumined. Okay? We are all familiar with that. The same way, the soul is self-illumined, but not the chit. When the yogis vividly perceive the various spheres of chit during different states of samadhi, then it becomes a subject of perception and knowledge. But the Purush is changeless. Chit can be bright. It can be sometimes dull. Sometimes it could be disturbed. But Purush, the Atma, no change in it. The moment the mind is introverted and it transcends the limits of the senses, a person can be aware that Purush is other than the Chitta. So that means with our sadhana, when we become antarmukhi, then we can see this, we can realize this, that Purush is the one which is illumining the Chitta. The Purush is not realized through the mind. Because if it's realized through the mind, then that means that the mind is a tool and Purush is dependent on it. That's not how it is. The mind as a whole is completely separated and is thrown out of the field of experience. So that means we got to transcend the mind. Sure, we use the mind first, but after that we have to transcend the mind. See, just like in our ordinary day-to-day activities, we depend on our senses for knowledge. We see through the eyes, hear through the ears. But a scientist uses these instruments. As a yogi, depends upon the highest faculty of self-knowledge. So those are also scientists, actually. See, there are scientists in this physical world, but yogis are the scientists of this metaphysical world. So through their sadhana, they understood this, that it is only after the changing instrument of the knowledge, that is chit, is eliminated, that the Purush can be realized. So the supreme being or Purush is not the subject of the knowledge through the mind, but it is the subject of knowledge by itself. The whole process of yogic sadhana is not so much the awareness of Purush as the illumination or elimination of the lower forms, the lower vehicles of awareness. So all that disturbs us through the mind, through the body, we are trying to eliminate that. Because otherwise, if the body is sick, what do? We are constantly worried about this body. So that's why yogis, they said, keep this body healthy. So that my body does not become a problem on this path. And then they say that mind also Just make sure that understand this mind is a tool. We are through the mind, and ultimately letting go of the mind, we are trying to understand who we are. Or even not just the mind, intellect also. Because Purush, the Atma, illumines itself. It's not perceptible by Chitta. So this is, he's trying to make it very clear with all these verses to us. And we can transcend the mind and the Chitta only if it's clean. Only by understanding this, that who we are. Then in the next verse, verse number 20, he says, Ek samye cha ubhya anavdharnam. In this verse, he is telling us the limitation of the mind. See, Atma doesn't have any limitation. Just like a Paramatma doesn't have any limitation, but mind does have limitation. Ek samye, that means simultaneously. At the same time, ek samye. Cha means and, ubhe means both. Anavdharnam, non-comprehension. And there cannot be the comprehension of both simultaneously. What are these both? The Chit and the Atma. So Chit has its own limitations. It is pointed out here that you cannot have a simultaneous comprehension of the perceiver and the perceived, the cognizer and the cognized. You can have the knowledge of one of them at one time because the mind can perceive only certain experiences. So that's why it's very important to transcend the mind. Detach from the mind. Detach from the subtle body if you really want to know who you are. When the mind is the perceiver, it cannot be perceived. This dual faculty of perception and perceived is not there in the mind. And that is its limitation. Verse number 21. Chit antra drishye buddhi buddhe ati prasangaha samriti sankraha cha. Chit antra drishye, in one mind being cognized by the other. Buddhi buddhe, cognition of cognitions. Ati prasangaha, absurd superfluity. Samriti, memory. Sankraha, confusion. Sankra is when something is mixed up. Cha means and. So this verse is about confusion of the memories. If cognition by one mind of the other be accepted, then there will be cognition of cognitions leading to absurdity and confusion of memory. So Chit cannot be the cognizer. The Purush is the real cognizer. That's what he's trying to tell us. The Purush cannot be cognized by the mind or anything else. So it's like a lower cannot understand the higher. Something which is dependent upon the lower, how can it understand the higher? So in the yogic philosophy, instead of accepting the Chit itself as the cognizer of another Chit, we should accept the basis of Purusha as the cognizer who remains unchanged, while everything else undergoes a constant change. So everything else is changing, but the Atma does not change. Okay? Verse number 22. Chittehe aprati sankramaya tadakara apatau swabuddhi samvedanam chitte, of the consciousness, a pratihi sankramaya, not passing from one to another, tadakara, own form. So tad akar, own form. Apatau, have accomplished. Swabuddhi, self-cognition. Samvedanam, knowing of. So this verse is about knowledge of its own nature. Knowledge of its own nature through self-cognition is accomplished when consciousness assumes that form in which it does not pass from one stage to another. So cognition through the chit depends on different levels of consciousness, because the consciousness assumes that particular form of buddhi through which the mind is passing. When the consciousness assumes that pratyay, in which one's experience does not pass from one level to another, due to the absence of the mental vehicle, then self-cognition takes place. So the knowledge of one's own nature is obtained. So this has a connection with the state of Purush called Svarup Avasthanam. You remember the third verse? Tada Svarup Avasthanam. That state comes into being when the chit assumes pratyay, which is a product of ritambra, where the experiences don't change anymore. So long as the meditation continues in the field of mind, experiences go on changing. And those experiences called prati sankram. So those experiences, that's why when people talk about that in my meditation, went to this place, that place, those are the experiences. So experiences continue changing. But when the mental awareness is evolving, when it becoming subtler and subtler, experiences go on changing. And when they change, that means the mind is not steady. It's ever developing, changing. The inner structure of the mind undergoes a tremendous change in meditation. A meditator seems like sitting, doing nothing, but there's a lot of changes happen inside. So the experiences in meditation are not ultimate because there is a constant change. So in the final stage, the chit has a constant, unchanging pratyay. That means there is no change. That changeless is the Atma. Otherwise, all those pratyas in the mind, they keep on changing. So this is a stage of samadhi where the process of experiences stop, and there's no longer the possibility of transcending the limitations of the chit. Then the seer accomplishes his own form. That is Savrup Avasthanam. And there's no change in that Savrup. The changes are only in the Prakriti. That's what he has been telling us. In the beginning, there may be different forms. In our meditation, it could be Om, or there could be a Shivling, or the form of your Guru. In the final stage, there's only one form, which does not change. Because we know that even the Om, it can change the form. Shivlings can have different forms. But this form which is talking about, this is called tad akar or akara patyo belongs to the last category of samadhi. The final state is described in the Upanishads also, in the Bhagavad Gita also. It is the state of pure consciousness, which has the attributes of Sat, Chit, Ananda. It gives a homogeneous experience which is not limited by mind. Because otherwise, if we are seeing something with the help of the mind, there's always limitation. So it comes when one transcends the limits of Chit and establishes oneself in unfluctuating, pure consciousness, which is absolutely homogeneous and static also. In that state, there's a swa buddhi samvedanam. That means the complete knowledge of one's mind, the knowledge of the body, senses, and the mind completely stops, and there's only the unchanging knowledge of Savarupa. That is the one's form, the Atma. The knowledge of Buddhi is the knowledge of your inner nature. Buddhi does not mean intellect or mind, it means awareness over here. See, these Sanskrit terms, sometimes you got to look at it in which context they are connected with. So in yoga, Buddhi means intellect as supreme awareness. It is said in the Bhagavad Gita that supreme reality is beyond the Buddhi or self-awareness. The word Buddhi is being used, that state of supreme awareness. It is there when you're not functioning through the medium of the mind, but through the medium of the supreme consciousness, Buddhi. Just as when the level of consciousness stops fluctuating, a single unchanging awareness of our own inner nature arises. Then there is a self-cognition or supreme knowledge of the self. Let's stop it here and we'll start our next week's class with verse number 23. That's where he again talks about the mind, apprehension of the mind. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.